Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. It is going to be an interesting session today where we go through what we're calling a deep dive session, which is ultimately designed to go into a very specific feature or features and explain how they can work within SalonBridge, or if they're completely unrelated to SalonBridge and they don't actually integrate, how you can use them to enhance your business, to automate some things, to create some interesting process flows. So just as a reminder, this recording will be shared with you after the event has completed. You'll see that there is a poll that I've posted as well. So if you do want to answer that, that also just gives me a bit of an understanding as to whether you are familiar with Zapier and JotForm at all, and where we're going to start. You don't have to be familiar with those two products, but what we're not going to do today is we're not going to go through the basics of SalonBridge. Those sessions are referred to as the Intro to SalonBridge sessions, and those are also once every 2 weeks. The next one is next week, Tuesday. So we're not going to go through some of the basics. We're really just going to focus on the JotForm and Zapier integration today. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and we can actually get stuck right in, and I'll go through what these products are and why you would potentially use them as well. So this is just the SalonBridge dashboard. But what we're going to be covering today is firstly what JotForm does, how that integrates with SalonBridge. We're going to create a form within JotForm, an electronic form that you can use to send to your customers. So imagine you gather information about your clients, maybe when they come into your salon or spa. Maybe you're wanting just to gather that information on an ad hoc basis. But what JotForm allows you to do is to create digital forms that you can send to your customers. They can tap on it from their phones when they get a reminder message, or they can access it electronically. They can complete it. And we're going to go through how that process works, and then also how you can view those client responses. So before a client even arrives, you can see what their responses are. We're going to go through how you can link those forms directly to a customer's profile. So rather than just see all of the responses from your clients, if you want to go into a specific client and access that client's form response, we're going to show you how to do that. And then we're going to finish it off by discussing Zapier. So Zapier is a workflow automation process tool. Essentially, it allows you to create processes and workflows that are meant to replace tedious admin tasks that you would normally do by hand. So if you were to think of something within your business that you know can be streamlined or automated, I'm not talking about calling clients or following up with clients. I'm talking about admin type tasks that, maybe at the end of the day, there's a process whereby you go through all of your emails and you need to allocate a specific email into a spreadsheet, or you need to send a message to one of your business partners about something. Zapier allows you to automate a lot of that, and we use it internally at SalonBridge for a lot of our automation processes. So a lot of stuff around the billing, processing of invoices, linking that to clients. We use Zapier a little bit more complex, but we'll go through how you can use Zapier with JotForm and SalonBridge in a basic example tonight. For both of these accounts, I'm using a free account. So both of these have free versions that you can use, both JotForm and Zapier. They do have paid for versions as well. So JotForm's paid for versions allows you to have certain extensions added, such as credit card processing, additional form responses per form per month, that sort of thing. And Zapier allows you to create more automated tasks. It also allows you to do things like create conditional statements. So you can add logic within a automation to say, if the email has this subject line and it's within this date range, I want it to go this path, but if it's from a different person, I needed to follow a different process of automation. So we're going to go through all of that in a little bit of detail. One thing I will say is that I'm doing this live. This isn't a recording in any way. Things can go wrong. I'm not guaranteeing that everything within JotForm or Zapier is going to work flawlessly the first time, but we're in this together. So let's kind of see how this works. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the integrations section of SalonBridge. And this is where you would enable your JotForm or Zapier integration. So if I scroll down to integrations, I can see that underneath the business automation and processing, there is a Zapier integration and a JotForm integration. So I want to enable the JotForm integration. And you can see there's a little bit of information about it over here. And if you're not familiar with how forms work or JotForm works, you can click on this Learn More tab, and we've got an article or a section within our knowledge base dedicated to JotForm and how that works. Over here, I've got a tab with JotForm open. So I've already created an account. It's a free account that I've created, and I don't have any forms open here. So I'm going to actually go through the process of creating a form. The form I'm going to create in this process is going to be a consultation form, or maybe a COVID declaration form, whether that's even still a thing. But essentially, I'm going to have a form that I want to send my customer before their appointment happens. I want to ask them for some of their information, and I want that information to be tied to their profile automatically. Later on, when I discuss Zapier, I'm going to take the information that's within that form, and I wanted to update a client's profile automatically for me. So when a customer puts in their phone number and email address, I wanted to update the client's profile on SalonBridge with their most recent contact details, so that I can ensure that their phone number and their email address is up to date. You can do some other things like ask them whether they want to receive marketing messages, their birthday, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to go into that a little bit. So let's create our form here. So I'm going to do that by clicking on the Create Form button. And I'm going to use a template because this is really just a demonstration. So let's have a look at the type of forms we have here. So we can look at maybe consent forms. And you can see they give you a little bit of some samples over here. So you can see a vaccine consent form, medical consent form. I just want to find something super basic, which I can then obviously go and change. So here's actually quite a nice one. This is a COVID-19 pandemic hair treatment consent form. I'm going to use this template. Now, whether you still use COVID-19 declaration forms or not is irrelevant. This is really just to show you the process of creating a form. So I've chosen the template, and it now presents me with what the form is going to look like. So I can add a logo and I can adjust some settings here. I'm going to make a few basic changes to this. So I'm going to, rather than have this look like this, I'm also going to ask the customer for things like their mobile number and the email address. And I'm just going to do that by clicking on Add Form Element. And I want to ask them for their email and phone number. And that's the current date. Maybe I'm also going to add here another date field, but I'm going to ask them for that's going to be the birthday. Let's choose here. Can I search date picker? There we go. Don't even need it. Okay, let's make this a bit prettier. I'm also going to add short text. And I'm going to split this into name and surname. So this is going to be first name, last name, email address, number, and birthday. I'm going to delete this first one quickly. And then I'm going to make some changes here. Because I want to make it look a little bit nicer. So I'm going to shrink that. I'm going to shrink this one so it appears next to each other. I'm going to do the same thing for this row. For that, and birthday can stay as is. But I do want to change the format of birthday. I want the format, I wonder if I can change this, yes, to be year, month, and day. That makes more sense to us. The current date, which is going to be just the date of when this form was submitted, I don't really need that, so I'm going to remove that. Name of stylist for upcoming visit. I'm going to remove this as well because this is not really relevant for the form. So what I've got here is I've got first name, last name, email address, mobile number. I'm going to change the mobile number field slightly because I can change how I want this to look. So I want it to be 10 characters long, and I don't want any of these special characters. Yeah, I just want it to be, that type of format. You can obviously change this if you want. You can add things like country code if you want. Let's just leave that as is. So now I've got my basic form. Right at the bottom, it gives me all of these checkboxes to add, and it tells me a little bit of a policy with a electronic signature and a submit button. I'm going to go and just choose settings here. This is what the customer is going to see after they've completed the form. So this is the thank you page. You can edit this if you want to. You can also add emails here. So once the form has been submitted by your customer, you can have this be emailed automatically. And the publish tab. So this is the actual link for your form. So if I have a look at what this looks like from what a customer would see, they would see this when they come here. They can put in their first name, last name, email address, mobile number, date of birth, and they can do all of this stuff, and they can electronically sign this, which is quite nice. Now, I'm not going to fill this in yet from a customer's perspective. So now I have my form, and if I go back to the home screen of JotForm, I can see that there is a form over here with 0 submissions. Now, left as is, you can share this link with your customers, and you'll be able to, from within JotForm, you'll be able to view your submissions. It'll actually give you the ability to go in here and view your submissions. But this can be quite tedious because you don't want to go into JotForm every single time to actually look at the forms. You want this to appear within your SalonBridge dashboard, and you want to see it under a client's profile automatically. So how do we link this to SalonBridge? And the way we do that is by going into SalonBridge and enabling the JotForm integration. When I click on enable, it's going to ask me for a JotForm API key. So this is something that JotForm provides, which allows us to fetch your forms and your form responses from JotForm securely. So how do you get an API key, and where do you find it? So this can be found within JotForm itself, and this little link over here will actually show you how to generate an API key. But let's do it together from within JotForm. So under JotForm, I would click on my profile over here, and I go to settings. And underneath settings, I can configure all sorts of stuff about my profile, but I'm going to go down to the API section. And here is a section called API keys, where I can now create a new key. So let's click on create new key. This is going to generate that API key. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it in SalonBridge, which asks me for my JotForm API key. When I click on enable JotForm, it's going to verify that API key, and it's going to enable JotForm for me. I can see here it's enabled. And now that I've done that within JotForm, I can close the settings page over here and just go back to my main homepage. So where will this form now appear within SalonBridge? You'll see that underneath my business, there's a section called Forms, which is now active, and I can see that it has pulled in already the form from JotForm that I created here, which is the COVID-19 Salon Company's consent form. It also provides me with a little bit of a link here, so I can, copy this, and I can, go to the, I can actually just open the form directly if I wanted to. And this will just take me straight to the JotForm like it did before. But again, this isn't very useful because you don't want to share this on a client-by-client basis. You want this to be all automated and really fancy. So how do we do that? We do that by giving you what we call an SMS URL. So this URL is the one that you can share from within SalonBridge under your notification settings, so that when a customer clicks on it or when they tap on it from their SMS reminder or the email reminder, it's going to take them to the form and allow us to marry it to the client's profile automatically. So why would we do that? Quite simply, one can access the form responses directly from the form section. You can do that by going to view form responses, and you can view all of the responses over here. But wouldn't it be really a lot better if when you click on an appointment and you go to the client's profile, you're able to see what forms they have submitted and what their answers were directly from their profile without having to find it from within all the client's form submissions? So you can use this client ID URL, but there is a catch. You have to modify your form very slightly to cater for this, what we call a SalonBridge variable. So if you go and click on the form info/share button over here, you'll see that there is an article. We actually have one on how you can tie form responses directly to a client's profile. And it requires you to add a variable within your form called SB. So let's go and do that quickly. Let's go and modify our form. And I'm going to add a element here, a new field. And I'm going to put it right near the bottom over here. This is just going to be a standard short text field. I'm going to call it SB, because that's what we're looking for ultimately. When we receive form responses, we're going to look for the client identifier within this SB variable. But I don't want the customer to see it, so I'm going to make it invisible. I'm going to go to the settings for this variable. I'm going to, under the advanced section, hide it so the customer actually can't see it. And under the unique name, I'm going to give it the SB name, which is important. So when you add that link, which I'm going to show you how to do now, we're going to add the client ID to the address for this form. So the client ID is going to be present as a form submission variable, and that is how we are going to interpret for which client this form response belongs to. We can do a demo of this now. So I'm not going to give it any placeholders. It is hidden. I've given it the SB variable name. I'm not going to add any sort of character limits to it. I'm just going to leave it as is. One can't really see it. It is invisible. But let's go ahead and just publish it. And I can see that all changes have been saved. So now let's go back into SalonBridge. And I'm going to copy this SMS URL. And I'm going to go to my client notifications. And I'm going to adjust the notifications that a client gets to include this URL, because I want customers to fill in this form when they get an appointment confirmation message. You can add it as part of any of these messages. You can add it as part of the reminder message. Let's just put it over here. Client ID. Something along those lines. I'm also going to include this same link in the email that gets sent out when an appointment gets booked. So I'm going to go to my email settings under client notifications, and I'm going to add just beneath I'm going to remove the cancellation link. And I'm going to say complete. And I'm going to make the here button a link. Okay, so this is what's going to be shown to a customer when they get a appointment creation SMS and email. I'm going to save this. So now everything is pretty much set up. My form is ready. I've linked it to SalonBridge, my forms. I've also added the sharing link that's going to automatically add the customer's identifier to the message. So that way, JotForm's going to, when we pull in the responses from JotForm, we're going to get that client identifier and we're going to marry it to a client. So now let's test this. Let's go to the appointment calendar and let's make a booking. Let's do it for staff 2. I've already created a profile that's going to go to this email address and this phone number. And I'm going to do a gents cut. And let's click on book. So the appointment gets made. I have set up my SalonBridge system to send out an email and an SMS whenever an appointment gets booked. Let's have a look here. The customer gets sent their appointment created message. I should have received it via SMS as well. I did. So maybe you can sort of see that. But the customer gets the message and there is a link here as well. So let's click on this. And I can see that there is this section over here that has been added, which is what I added. So when a customer clicks on this, they're going to get taken to my COVID declaration form. And I'm going to now complete this as if I were a client. So I'm going to put in my details. Birthday. Let's make this December. Ooh, I have to scroll back far. I'm going to confirm these terms and conditions because that is what I've set up in my demo form. I probably shouldn't have done so many forms over here. I hope this all makes sense that I'm clicking yes to. I understand the terms and conditions, and I'm going to sign it as if I'm a customer. Now I'm going to click on submit. Okay, so that has been submitted, and I get the thank you page. Let's go to JotForm quickly to see if this response is over here. So JotForm, I can see that there is one submission, and if I click on that, I can go to the submission section within JotForm. I don't want to see that new welcome video, but I can see all the information that a customer put in over here. So I can see all of this, all of these details, signature, details, etc. Let's go to SalonBridge. I will also specify that we pull in form responses periodically. So you're not going to see it maybe as quickly, but let's have a look if we can maybe refresh this or re-pull in those submissions. So I can see here Salon Company Consent Form. This is the form. I want to view the form responses, and nothing's pulled in yet. Like I said, this does do it every so often. But if I just hit the refresh button here, I can actually see the response that a client has made. And if I click on view response, I can see their response information here. So I can scroll down and I can see all the information they put in here, their first name, last name, mobile number, email address, all of this is here. Now, I should be able to go to this client and view the form response. Like I said, I'm doing this live, so let's let's ensure that this works. So I'm going to click on the appointment that I made. I'm going to go to the client's profile just by clicking on that magnifying glass. And there's a section under here called form responses. And look at that. Here is the response that this client did to the form. I click on view response and I can see what they put in here or what they agreed to. And I can see all of this information accurately. And how did we know that that form submission was linked to this client? The way that we knew that was because we added that SB variable to the JotForm form. What happened is SalonBridge pulled in the form responses. It looked for a field called SB. It found that the SB variable is the client identifier, and we then created a marriage between that form response and this specific client. So I found this client's profile just by going to the appointment calendar, clicking on the booking, and then going to the form responses section. But you can also access the client section, the client's profile from the client section by clicking on the client's name, and you can see here the appointments for the client and the form responses that this client has submitted. So immediately you can see that works quite nicely. You can obviously at any time access this form response within JotForm itself, but it is slightly, if you're within SalonBridge all day, if your staff are accepting appointments and they need to make sure that a client submitted a submission or a consent form, they can do it this way quite quickly. So that is how that works. Quite neat, quite straightforward. That is how one can create a JotForm form, link it to SalonBridge, and marry your form submissions. That SB variable is quite important. If you do want to find out more about forms specifically, under the integration section, if you scroll down to JotForm, you can click on the Learn More tab, and that's going to take you to our knowledge base where you can view the article on how forms work. And you can also go just to the main forms section, and you can actually see articles on how to enable the JotForm integration, how to link form submissions to a client. And this is very important. This article on how to link form submissions to a client, that last step that I did by creating that SB variable is incredibly important if you want form submissions to be linked to a customer's profile. It's not going to work otherwise. So that is how you can do that. So now that I've set up my JotForm integration, whenever a booking gets made for any client, they're going to get sent that link, which they can then go in and update their details. Now I want to create a automation. I want to get a little bit fancy with this. I want to make it so that whenever a client completes one of these forms, whenever they get asked for their phone number, their email address, I want to make sure that the details the client put in, their email address and their phone number, get updated on SalonBridge automatically so that they will always receive the emails and SMSs that the system sends to them. So you don't have cases where maybe you don't have a client's email address loaded or phone number loaded. If they put in their email address and phone number on the JotForm, I want to update the client's profile within SalonBridge automatically for me. How do we do this? We can do that by using a process within Zapier. We can create a workflow automation. So Zapier, again, I've created a free account here. There are limitations to what you can do on the free profile, but it's more than adequate for doing some basic workflow automation. You can create processes and automations between different apps. Zapier has about 3,000 to 4,000 different apps that you can integrate with. SalonBridge is one of them. Google Calendar, Excel, Xero, JotForm, all of these are examples of apps that have integrations within Zapier. So let me show you how this works. Under your Zapier dashboard, you can go to the Zaps section and you can see all of your Zaps. A Zap is what Zapier refers to as your automations, essentially. So for example, when a client completes a JotForm submission, I want to send a message to SalonBridge to update the client information. That would be an example of a Zap. So over here, I can see I've got no Zaps enabled, and I want to now create my first Zap. So let's go and click on the Create button, and I'm going to say New Zap. And this will take me to an editor within Zapier. This is going to allow me to build my first Zap ever. So I can see within Zapier, yes, SalonBridge, yes, JotForm. I am going to create it's going to be based off an event, which is going to be a JotForm submission. So I'm going to choose JotForm as the trigger app. So JotForm, the event is going to be a new submission. And it's going to take me very, quite simply through the process of actually linking this. So it's now going to ask me to connect JotForm. But this is because Zapier needs to have a link to my JotForm account, to my SalonBridge account, in order to access information, access new form submissions, and to write information to SalonBridge. So let's click on the Sign In tab here. And it's going to bring up this window over here, where it's going to ask me to sign in. It's going to ask me some information about my JotForm profile, whether the account is HIPAA compliant. I'm going to say it's not, because it's not in my case. Do you use European data centers? I need to confirm that, but I'm going to leave it as is for now. I believe that is just to do with some compliance stuff. And then I'm going to say allow Zapier to connect to my JotForm account. So again, very straightforward. It's pulled up the JotForm account for me automatically. I click on continue, and I'm going to now choose a form that I want to monitor within Zapier for new submissions. So I can see I've only got the one form here, which is the form I just created earlier. I click on that and I click on continue. This is now going to test the integration. It's going to attempt to fetch form submissions for me based on what I've configured here. So I can see that it's actually found a submission here. This is just the submission that it uses just to make sure that the connection is correct. And it's actually found the submission that I did earlier. So I'm happy with that. I can click and continue. Everything's working because I can see this little green tick here. Now, what do I want to do as my next step? So when a submission comes in on JotForm, I want to communicate to SalonBridge. I want to update a client within SalonBridge. I choose SalonBridge as the app, and the event is going to be a update client event. So you can do there are a couple options here, and we're constantly adding new events that you can do. You can either create a new client completely, or you can just update a client. And it's going to ask me to continue. Now it's going to ask me to connect SalonBridge. So now in order to connect SalonBridge, it's going to ask me for a SalonBridge API key. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into SalonBridge, and I'm going to get that key. Under the integration section, there's a Zapier integration. And when I click on enable, it's going to ask me to generate an API key within SalonBridge. I click on the generate API key button, and SalonBridge generates an API key for me. I then copy that because Zapier is now going to ask me for that API key. If I go back to Zapier, I click on sign in, and you'll see that it asks me to sign into SalonBridge or to ask for that API key. It also tells you where you can go within SalonBridge to get this API key. So I'm just going to paste the one that I just created, and I'm going to say continue. This is then going to do a lookup, and it's going to find information, or it's going to check whether this API key is valid within SalonBridge, which is unique to your business account. So it's already now been successfully created, and it's going to take me through the next steps. So now it's going to ask me for information about which client to update. So it's going to send information to SalonBridge. So the first required information here is the client ID. So that client ID, we already sent it through with our submission in this field over here, the SB field. So that is the one that you would use in order to send the client ID to SalonBridge. That is how we're going to, when Zapier sends the details from that JotForm to SalonBridge, we're going to find this SalonBridge ID, we're going to tie it to your business profile, and we're going to update the details that are sent, such as the first name, last name, mobile number, email address, gender, etc. So first name, I'm going to say, is going to be the first name from the JotForm submission. The last name is going to be the last name from the JotForm submission. So this is all information that the client put into JotForm. The mobile number is going to be, I'm going to find the mobile number that the client put into JotForm. And the email address, I'm going to choose the email address here. Now, I'm not asking for things like gender, whether they're receiving text reminders, marketing messages. The birthday, I'm actually going to update that as well, because I did ask my client for their birthday. And that's going to be the birthday field of what the client chooses. Let's continue. And I'm going to click on test action. So this is going to test my setup here for me. It's going to send the information to SalonBridge and tell me whether it was successful or not. I can see that it was sent through to SalonBridge. And now that I'm happy with this, I'm going to click on Publish Zap. This is going to make it live. So now what's going to happen, I don't have to do anything else in the background. What's going to happen now is when I book an appointment within SalonBridge, the client's going to get a SMS and an email. They're going to be sent that link that I added to the message. When they click on it, they're going to get sent to the JotForm form that I created, where I ask them for their name, surname, mobile number, email address, birthday. Also, I ask them for their signature to consent to my policy. And let me just rename this quickly. Let's just edit this app quickly. I want to call it and update. Okay. They're going to get taken to that form. They're going to fill in that form. That form is going to be automatically sent to SalonBridge, or SalonBridge is going to pull that form in automatically for me. It's going to link it to a client's profile. So I can go to the client's profile, view it, and see what each client has responded. Then in the background, Zapier is also going to monitor for new form submissions within JotForm. And whenever a client completes one of these forms, it's going to send SalonBridge the information, and it's going to update things like their mobile number, email address, so that it is automatically up to date at all times. So let's do one more test here. Zapier typically runs once every 5 to 15 minutes to fetch in new responses. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a booking, and I'm going to deliberately change my details. So let's have a look here. If I search for my name, I can see that there's an email address, SalonBridge tester, and contact number, and my birthday has been set to the 1st of December, 1987. Let's create a new booking for this client. Let's go through this process very briefly one more time to see if it updates my details correctly within SalonBridge. So I'm going to book that appointment. I should have now received a new email with the details, and I can click here to complete our COVID-19 consent form. So let's click on that and complete the form. JotForm's active, everything's working. I'm going to put in my details here. I'm going to keep my name the same, but instead of SalonBridge tester, I'm going to make it hello at mysalonbridge.com. I'm going to update my mobile number to be correct. My birthday, I have decided, is now November the 1st. Should I make myself younger? Not too young. Let's make it November the 1st, 1995. Why not? Because we can. Let's tick these tick boxes as if I'm a client. Again, I hope I'm not saying that I actually have COVID in any of these forms. Sign and submit. So, confirm, and it says thank you. Back to the form submissions. A form submission should be, a new form submission should be here. I'll see under my forms over here, there's another form. Submission, new details, hello at my SalonBridge. Under SalonBridge, if I go to forms and I view the form responses and I hit refresh, I can see this information here. It's tied to this client, so it still pulls in the client's old information. However, Zapier hasn't yet updated my details yet, but let's have a look here quickly at this Zap. Let's have a look to see if I can view the history of this Zap, because I should be able to see when it has pulled in information. It hasn't actually run yet. So I wonder if I can run this quickly. Let's go to my Zaps, and I'm going to run this Zap, which should then pull in a new submission from that JotForm, and it should update the client within SalonBridge. Let's run it. Looking for new items. And it looks like it triggered one submission. So let's have a look at the history. Within Zapier, within the history, it looks like it fetched a submission within JotForm, and it sent this information to SalonBridge. Now, moment of truth, let's have a look at this client. So it has now automatically updated the email address to hello@mysalonbridge.com. It's updated the phone number to what the client put in, i.e. me. And if I click on it, it has also updated my birthday to be 1995, 1st of 11th. Look at that. It's as if it's magic. I actually get really excited when I see stuff work like this, because it's actually completely automated. It hasn't, I mean, imagine a situation where you've got forms that are printed in your salon that a client has to complete by hand. They have to give it back into your receptionist. The receptionist then has to go to the client's profile, update it, which could be done incorrectly. It could be correct. There's room for error. But in this example, the client has completed the form by themselves. SalonBridge has pulled in that response automatically for me. And Zapier has taken that information and it has sent it to SalonBridge to update the client. So this is a very basic demo of how you can use JotForm to create an electronic form and Zapier to create a quick automation. Now, you can do a lot of other things within JotForm. You can create other types of forms that you can send to your customers. You can create consent forms, birthday forms, customer updated. You can just send a form that asks the customer to make sure their details are correct. And you can also, within Zapier, create all sorts of different zaps. So, for example, in the previous one, I created one where the action is JotForm, i.e., or the trigger, beg your pardon, is JotForm. So it's looking for events that happen within JotForm, and then it's sending it off to SalonBridge. But you can also use SalonBridge as the trigger event, i.e., look for something that happens within SalonBridge, and then take that information and send it or do something somewhere else. So as a silly example, you can tell Zapier to monitor SalonBridge for new appointments whenever a new client is added, a new closeout, a new gift card, a new payment, new void. Whenever a client gets updated, you can trigger off Zapier to send an email, for example. So you can also do things like whenever a new appointment is booked, you can fire off an email to your receptionist to let them know that a new booking's come in, even though they should kind of know about it. But that just shows you some of the ways in which you can create workflows to help streamline your business and to save some time. Zapier is designed, and their whole sort of business plan is designed around automating repetitive tasks that you can otherwise do within something like Zapier. So think about elements within your business that you believe can be automated, and think of whether you can create a Zap within Zapier in order to help automate that. Everybody's going to be different. Your business is going to be different. If you can think of something that really frustrates you at the end of the day, something manual that you have to do, whether it's updating a spreadsheet, sending an email, updating client details, you can now create Zaps within Zapier to do all of that. And you can pretty much do it for free, unless you really want to get fancy and create, multiple steps within these workflows. But even then, there's ways around that. So I hope that this was a useful or valuable session. Like I said before, we will share the recording with you after this as well. I see we have a question. When a client comes in for facials, can we set on reminders that it's only client that is coming for facials, get the JotForm to complete? For facials. So reminder messages are not specific to services at the moment. So when you book a client for an appointment, whether it be for a facial or massage or any type of appointment, ultimately that JotForm link you can send to a customer manually if you wanted to. So what you could do under the forms, let me just go to forms. You could share this link with your customer through SalonBridge. So imagine for a second, or for if it's a specific type of service that you want to just send, you could click on a client's appointment and you could send them a manual message from within SalonBridge just for that specific form. However, if you're wanting SalonBridge to send out this as part of an appointment reminder or a confirmation message, it doesn't allow you to currently differentiate between different forms. That being said, what you could do, and what I have seen others do, is under your client notifications, if you are sending email reminders, you could say, for example, something like this. And then you could have the link to the facials consent form. And then beneath that, you could have something along the lines of, and you could have the link to the other form that you've created. The process for these forms remains exactly the same. So all that you're really doing here is letting the customer choose which form that they're going to submit based on what service they're having. Something where you could create custom messages, custom appointment confirmation messages, custom reminder messages based on service or category is something that we're yet to release, but it is something that we will obviously look into for you. So if there are questions that you come up with after this is finished, feel free to reach out to us, send us a message. These are deep dive sessions, so they are very focused on this specific integration type. And it's my pleasure, Jean-Marie. But if you wanted to do something specific like that, again, reach out to us and we can try, brainstorm some ways in which you can do it. If you've already created the forms within JotForm, it also makes life a lot easier. So the first step that I would recommend doing is if you wanted to create forms for facials and then a form for something very specific for sort of everything else, then create those forms within JotForm. And then, a temporary workaround could be just to add it like this, so your customers still get the message when they book an appointment with you, and they can then see that you've got a consent form for facials, because obviously it's very specific and they might have a skin condition or they might be allergic to some products, which obviously has a profound impact on their day and lives. So you could then do something along those lines for that. But drop us a message if you do have questions, either by just sending us a live chat message or giving us a call, and we'll be more than happy to help. But thank you so much. I really do hope that you guys enjoyed this deep dive session. It's the first one that we've done where we actually deep dive into a very specific product and we do a rather intricate demo where things could go very wrong very fast. So for example, maybe JotForm isn't working correctly and then I look really silly online. But thankfully everything worked really well today, and why wouldn't it? Everything should work seamlessly with all of the integrations that we do. So again, thank you guys so much. Feel free to rewatch this. We'll email you the link directly after this is done. And keep an eye out for future sessions, and please let us know what else you'd like to see. So if you've got ideas for other deep dive sessions, so if you want to deep dive into online payments for online bookings or online gift card purchases or whatever, let us know, and we can also look to add that as well. It's always useful to know what our customers are really curious to find out more of, and how they'd like to use this to optimize their business better. But otherwise, have a fantastic Thursday evening further. And again, thank you guys so much for watching.